Clash of Clans podcast, OG, episode 31. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Scotty827, messing up the intro as always, and joined here in studio with the lovely, the magnificent Tip Dog 20.
Super excited about this season. I'm actually a little more excited about the September season of Clash than I was about Clashversary in August. Is that sad
No,
on my part?
because when I saw it, I think it was yesterday or maybe the day before. Chewy, I think, posted the RPG or wait, yeah, RPG tabletop
Yeah, role
RPG
player, but it's RPG tabletop.
tabletop, and he
hmm
posted the image of that, and I thought, oh, I bet this is exactly what Tip has been hoping for. I just thought of like you talking about some of the other games, and I was like, I bet he's gonna dig this.
Yeah, I've always been into tabletop games. Like I've loved tabletop games. Now the theme of September is more D&D based, and I've never really gotten to D&D. Although there are 3 games that I play that are kind of D&D. Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion, and Frosthaven. Have you heard of any of those games?
No,
So those are
no.
more dungeon crawlers versus tabletop D&D games. Basically, you have a map with squares on it, and you put it down, and it's pretty massive typically. And you have your characters, and you play cards that give your characters movement abilities and fighting abilities. And you have preset areas where there are monsters, and each and every scenario has a different monster, and you're fighting those monsters typically as a group. You can play up to 4 people, and we played it for a while. But Megan, my amazing better half, is not as into nerd gaming as I am. She's actually really cool, and I am not.
And there you are
So,
getting all competitive.
well, that
No,
and
I'm
like,
not just kidding. But
yeah, I'm like, oh, let's do a 6 power to the 3 of the wizard and do the mage spell on the left side, and we'll take the monster out from the right and go through the door in 2 turns. And she's like, what? But my
so,
son,
so you figured it was doing that with your wife, playing games, or getting laid. In other words,
pretty much, because I wasn't going to get laid after playing those
Yeah.
games. That's for
You
sure.
are
She was
just a
she was
nerd.
in the opposite
Yeah.
mood of that for sure. So it's like, okay, give up Gloomhaven, or yeah.
Or, yeah, my wife is just not gonna look at me the same.
But we have gotten back. So we got away from tabletop gaming for a little while, mainly because I was so absorbed into creating YouTube videos. So if I create a long format video, like it can take 5 to 10 hours per video, just like the recording, writing the script, editing the script, recording the script, editing the recording, adding the B-roll, like all of that takes a really long time. So I especially this past week, like I decided, and we had a talk, and I was like, look, I love doing YouTube, but also like we have stopped playing tabletop games, and so I really want to get back into it. And so I said, something's going to have to give. Like I'm going to have to slow down my YouTube schedule. Like I'm not going to be able to do 3 videos a week like I've been trying to do, and
Monster.
and I'm okay with that. Like I'm
Yeah.
going to cut it down and do 1 or 2 videos a week. But also that's given us time. So in the past, like after dinner, typically I would go outside and I would edit on my iPad. I would edit my video, and I would spend 3 or 4 hours a night just editing videos if I had the time. So now I've been like, no, like after dinner is going to be gaming time like it used to be. And so we broke out multiple games this week. We played Quacks of Quedlinburg. Last night we played I can't remember the games we played. But anyway, we played a game every night this week, which has been nice. And it's been
Yeah.
fun, and it's the family connection, which also makes it really exciting for me that they have this theme because I'm so big into tabletop gaming.
That's really cool.
Do you have a favorite tabletop game?
Well,
Monopoly?
no, I wasn't really thinking about it like just kind of straight up. Um, tabletop. I like playing Scrabble and stuff, like,
Right?
um, I mean, for the most part, like, I guess if I'm gonna pick any game that, like, is a tabletop one, I'm gonna pick Scrabble, but I love, like, Catchphrase and, like, those really interactive games. Um
So there have been some games that have been created, especially in like the past 10 years. So in 1995, Catan was created. Are you
Oh,
familiar
yeah.
with Catan at all?
Yep.
And that kind of set off the designer board game renaissance. And then like one of the next famous games that was created was Ticket to Ride. Have you heard of Ticket to Ride? It's
I've
a
heard of it, I think.
It's a train game where you're building, trains, putting them on this railway by combining trains with colors. Like, it's a basic strategic game, but it was, like, the next big designer game hit when previous to '95, like, the only games that were available were, like, Sorry and
Yeah.
Monopoly, maybe
Yep.
Clue, and that was about as strategic as you get. And, in the past just 20 years, there have been so many really in-depth strategic games that have been created, and currently I have around 130 tabletop games
Holy
in my
shitballs.
closet in my that's packed away in a little storage area that we have. So I have a ton of games. I love playing games. Like, it really tickles my brain. But the theme this month for Clash isn't necessarily tabletop games in general. It's very much
Yeah.
focused on D&D. Do you have any experience with D&D?
I do, a little bit. Um, a few times. The amount of times I've completed a D&D is
Mm,
probably 1 or maybe 2 because it's can be so long.
right. Well,
Eh
it also depends a lot if you have a good GM. If you have a good person who's telling the story and a person who's created a great storyline, or if you're following a storyline, like they have preset D&D stories that you can use, then in those cases it's a lot more interesting. But if you get somebody who's not a good grandmaster, then or
Yeah,
dragon master, sorry, DM, not GM, a good dragon master, then it's just not as fun. Like, so it all depends upon the person who's actually leading the story and whether or not it's a good experience or not.
yeah. It's kinda one of those I'd happily do it, if there was a kind of a group around it, but and it goes to that short attention span of mine that, like,
Mm.
it's gotta be, it's just I like I like hanging out with people and when I've done that, but yeah, some people somebody told me their game has been going on for, like, 7 years or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
A
It can
and
definitely go on that long.
and then imagine your friend is, like, the guy doing it, and then the asshole just blows it at the end with the storyline. I'd be
That would
like,
suck.
"Yeah, I'll see you later, buddy." Look,
Yeah.
at least have the end in mind, and, like, 7 years later.
Yeah,
Jeez.
I haven't done D&D a lot. I mean, I've done a few, episodes. It's been years actually since I played D&D. But the big thing with this month's Gold Pass, of course, is that there
Yeah.
was no hero skin introduced. Instead, they
What?
introduced a decoration, which it's a really cool decoration. Like, it's a die, it's a multi-sided die which you use in D&D, which I think is really cool, but I know that there's some negative feedback about that. What are you feeling about the Gold Pass not having a hero skin?
Burp. Well, okay. Now, as you're saying this, right? I looked at the news this morning when this stuff was happening, and the news, okay, it said, we wanted to give you something that was accessible to all players in the Gold Pass, something like that,
So
right?
I guess they're talking about like lower town halls. So lower town halls that, for instance, don't have the RC, if they put an RC skin in the Gold Pass, well, Town Hall 12 and below can access that. Essentially, is
Well,
that what you're
then
saying?
just put a different Gold Pass for town halls and 11 and below.
They could.
Okay, so when you're saying that, I'm thinking to myself, does that do anything? Right? Because this morning I got up, I saw it, I tried to put it on my lawn, no room. I
Not
had to
on my
move.
lawn.
Yep, not on my lawn. I had to move it around,
Not on my lawn.
get the hell off. But I was like, as you're saying that, I'm like, is it gonna do anything?
No,
Like,
I mean,
'cause
but the
there's
hero
that m
skins don't do anything either.
I suppose. Well, there was that mystery event. I was just thinking when they said accessible to all players, I was thinking maybe an ability or something like that, but
Mm.
I don't listen, a hero skin is a hero skin. Like, I I I'm not upset, but I'm disappointed, especially like you said before we recorded, with really cool hero skins. Or
You
no,
know
it's
what I would like
somebody was saying in the chat. Yeah.
is if they offered all the hero skins together as a package. You know how they have
Oh,
been
yeah.
offering them one by one for 9.99. Like, man, I don't want to spend. I'm not. I flat out, unless it's Star Trek themed, or I'm
You're
sorry,
not doing
Star
it?
Trek homage. I'm not spending $40 on skins. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to. But if they offered all four skins for 24.99, I don't
You
know
do it?
what I don't know. I mean, it would depend on the skin pack, but to me, like it's not buyer's remorse, but like it's price sensitivity. Like
Mm,
to me, $40 for skins for a video game is way too much. 24.99
yeah.
is definitely getting closer to that level where I'm like, oh, maybe I will. These are cool.
It would be
Like they're D&D skins, themed. I like D&D. I like tabletop gaming. So maybe I would spring for 24.99 versus $40.
it would be kinda cool to see it, like, $20 for 4 or, like, 6.99 for 1 or even if they did, like, 9.99 for 1 the
Mhm.
month that comes out or, like, 4 for, 20 bucks or something, like, where it's, like, just better to go for the deal.
I
Um,
wonder how many players they have who buy maybe one of the skins, but not the other 3. Or say we
I
get one in
do.
the gold pass and the other 3 skins you have to purchase. So
I usually do that. I don't usually purchase skins, but
all of them?
I'll pick 1. I was gonna do the Wild West, I was gonna get more than 1.
Mhm.
We got the free warden, I bought the queen. I was gonna get the king, but I just didn't. So I think I will so I'll buy if there's one that I'm just like, "That's really cool," I'll buy it. I think I've only bought 1.
I saw
Oh,
you got the Queen Wild Wild West one.
yeah, I had to get
'Cause
that
that is
one.
pretty cool. Like,
Yeah, I liked her
it's pretty awesome
shooting,
watching her. Yeah.
and it was just different. It kinda looked like on this one, like, the RC was really cool looking. Um, so I what do you think? I mean, you got the same lawn gnome. How are you feeling about the skin versus the
So every month I do a Gold Pass video, right? And I actually did mine this morning. I haven't edited it yet. I'm gonna edit it after we record. But I have been calling for Supercell to do something different with the Gold Pass because literally the months of June, July, and August were the exact same prizes and the exact same order. Like we got a hero skin and literally the exact same prizes. So my request was, hey, like change it up a little bit, add something to it, make it different.
so this was
So
your fault.
no, Supercell completely
Nah,
listened to me and my,
I see how it
4,000
is.
followers on
I know who to
YouTube.
talk to next time. Sit,
But I
sit.
I like it,
You do?
only because I don't need hero skins. Like, I don't need any more hero skins. I don't know how many hero skins that I've gotten in the gold pass that I will never put on my hero. And number
W
2,
well, let me
reason
ask you a
why.
question on that
Sure.
first. Is it because you won't do it without the complete set?
So that was my second point. Number 2, I typically will not put skins on a hero unless I have the set. So I've been running the champions skins where, they're all basically like the king has a fiery sword, the queen has a fiery arrow. Like I've been running those skins because it's a complete set. Like I like
Ye
running the party skins because they're all party. Like the queen has this super awesome like guitar and or the king has this
Lady
awesome
Gaga.
guitar. Right, right. The Lady Gaga skin.
Yep.
So I will only run sets on my heroes. And so to me, it's kind of worthless to get a whatever skin for my hero in the gold pass because I'm never going to use it unless I am inspired enough to buy the other 3 hero skins, and most of the time I don't. So because of that, I personally am like, "Look, this is a really good cool lawn piece, and I actually like it better than the
I know
heroes."
exactly where I'm gonna put it.
I
I
did, I
sh
put it in specific, although it's kinda cool too is most of the time statues are 2 by 2, I think. This piece is bigger, it's a 3 by 3 piece, so it takes up more space, it's more eye-catching, like, it's just a cool feature, like, seeing the dice run around, it's something that's close to my heart, like, I love gaming, I love rolling dice, I have
will
dice
that
towers that I play with, all of that.
will that leave a hole?
I probably will. I didn't even think about that. If you put it in the middle of your base versus a regular
Yeah,
statue,
that's why I was kinda wondering if it did something.
I mean, I don't ever worry about that. Number one, because I'm in Legends, so my home base is not my defensive base in Legends. But also number two, I keep all of my statues and trees and collectibles outside the rim of my base. Like I have them organized in a very specific way, and so
Eh
like I don't even think about that. But it is a good point.
Well, 'cause I had to move some stuff around, and that part seemed different to me, and I thought, "Well, how the hell am I gonna fit it?" Like, all the other stuff I could that I get, different I can place it within what I already have because it's not gonna take up more spots, so,
Do you
um
have that many statues?
No, no, I just mean, like, how the base is set up with
Oh, okay.
no, holes. Like, to put down that one this morning, the new one, I had to move something over, like a building over, and that made me wonder about the hole with it.
Well, that's a big change that Supercell made because they used to make it to where a shovel could only move one item one time. And then a year and a half
Oh,
ago,
yeah.
maybe longer, they made the shovel to where it made an object permanently movable, which is really nice because actually recently, like my outer ring is filling up. Like I probably only have, I don't know, room for maybe 15 or 20 more statues, which at the rate Supercell is going, like that will be filled up within a year or two. So I had to move my Christmas trees to the other side so that way I can make room for some of my
Oh, man.
statues. And I had Christmas trees that had not been moved yet. Like they've been sitting there for 7 years and they have not moved in 7 years.
Holy
So it's like, oh, so I had to get more shovels and then move them where I wanted. But it's really nice. You don't have to worry about, whether or not I want to move them from now on because the shovel is permanent now, which is
So
nice.
can you so if it leaves a hole, right? Or, it's a bigger thing,
That's what
it
she
could
said.
leave a yeah, it could leave a hole. That's what I keep wondering, like, if it did something. You know what I mean? Like, if maybe it doesn't. Probably doesn't, but
Probably not, but, like, if you put your troops on top of it, if they would, like, spin around or something, that would be
yeah,
kinda cool,
that'd be
but
kinda neat, but I
yeah.
haven't heard anything about it yet,
No,
and,
and I don't think they ever would, not for a decoration.
you'd probably think my base is just a mutt because I've got, like, the North hero skin, and I've got the Wild West and different themes going on.
Oh,
I
so yeah, the Norse skins, like, I have all of those, and so I will run those in the winter, like,
Oh, that's cool.
probably November or so at typically it's after. I think also I have all the Halloween skins. So like the
Oh, I don't
skeleton queen and like so I'll run those in October, November. And then I'll also run the Halloween scenery from a few years ago. And then typically in December, January, I'll switch over to of the North skins. I also have the Jolly King. I think I have all the Jolly skins as well, the Christmas skins. So I'll run the Jolly King, the Jolly Queen, like all of those for Christmas. And then typically I'll switch back. And the rest of the year, I typically run either the party skins or I think it's called the champion skins. But I
Oh,
typically just switch, and which goes back to my point. Like I only run sets of skins personally.
yeah.
So,
Well, I saw those just in the video for this season, and
mhm.
the hero skins look pretty cool.
They do look pretty cool. If it's not $40, I might actually buy them since it's
Yeah.
tabletop thing. I'm
I
excited
need
about
a
the
good
scenery.
RC one that I'm really excited about. Like, I like my king, I like my queen. Um, I'd like a maybe a little bit different ward, and he kinda reminds me of the Wild West right now with, but the movie with Will Smith.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so I could use a little bit something a little different on him, but for the
Which,
most part,
talking about movies, a little off topic, but we watched Madam Web last night. Have you watched it?
no, I haven't.
No, don't even bother. Sorry, I had to get that
No,
out because it was absolutely awful. Like,
that's
don't even bother. Okay,
what I've
back to Clash of
heard,
Clans.
that it's just awful, and I don't even
Yeah.
think I'll sit through it, even though it's a Marvel.
It was on Netflix, so it was free, and we're like,
They
what are
were
we gonna
paying
watch
people to
last
watch
night?"
it.
Yeah, pretty much.
They
We were
gave
like,
us a
"Oh, well, let's give it a
$10
shot."
coupon.
Which I hate because my wife loves Dakota Johnson. Or Joko, is that her name?
Yeah,
Dakota Johnson?
yeah.
She played in 50 Shades, like the trilogy, so she just loves her as an actor, and then, of course, Sydney Sweeney is in it. She's been really
Oh, yeah,
popular
she's been good.
recently, and there are a few other, recognizable actors, but just it was really
Just a
bad, really bad.
career-bending movie.
Yeah.
It's kinda like Morbius or whatever. I couldn't that one and look, I like most movies. Like, even if I don't like it, it's, like, not my thing. I know the movie can still be good. I don't have to, like it just cannot be my thing, right? Like, it's not for me, well written, everything like that, but
Right.
Morbius, that was one where I was like, "Why am I even in this theater right now? Get the hell out of here.
Yeah,
Damn
my
it."
wife has a movie she wants to go watch. I can't remember what it is, but it's some movie based on a book that she read. I'm like, "Yay, let's go watch it."
Yeah, I do love it in the movies. So, waiting again for, the new ones to come out. Alright, we probably better get to these, um,
Nerfs.
the nerfs or the birfs.
The
We should
Burfs.
just call it the birf episode of the month.
The Burf, so that's Nerfs and Buffs combined?
Nerfs and buffs, or would you go enough?
No,
Yeah,
ner ner
n nerp,
n ner
nerp. It's not gonna
The
work like a celebrity name, I guess. So, again, I'm gonna say this, this never happens to me,
Mhm.
where I pretty much just get touched by an update. Usually I'm right there in the center of it, just getting
Right.
punched in the face with a balance update.
Right.
And I have been pretty lucky these last few months,
Got Super Bowlers
especially
buffed.
Super Bowlers. My rocket spear is coming this in just a little bit here. So,
Yep, 25% buff to the rocket spear.
which is pretty massive.
Massive, yes.
So I'm excited about that. Um, so what are to you like looking at this, I'm getting back into the game and living in this new world. So so some of these numbers sometimes just I don't necessarily know exactly how they're going to translate onto the battles. What are you seeing? What what's striking you as the buffs that are going to be the biggest, the most interesting?
So to me, the three buffs that really don't matter are the Earthquake Boots, the Barbarian Puppet, and the Archer Puppet. So the Earthquake Boots are jumping from 50 to 60% damage. But again, the mechanic is cool, the idea is cool, but the spell needs to be thrown forward. The
Uh,
problem is that the spell is only usable for half of the hero. Like it only because whenever you're using
yeah,
the king's already damaged and destroyed everything that's behind him. So as he's moving forward, whatever it hits, the spell is only going to be half hitting everything that's possible to be hit.
like
So
do an
if they
earthquake wave, like that just goes
yes,
forward.
right. So if the earthquake was not around the king, and if the earthquake instead was in front of the king, then we might be talking about some really viable equipment because then you could wait till the king got to a complex set of walls, and then you could press the earthquake boots, and then maybe you could open up two, possibly even three layers of walls with that earthquake spell, which is thrown in front of the king.
That'd be
But
kind of
as it
cool.
is, that buff really doesn't do anything. Pretty much
So,
worthless,
does it
in my
make
opinion.
any difference if I tell you? I don't know. I just saw this as I was looking 6 tiles to 8 tiles.
again, so you gotta cut that in half pretty much.
4
So
tiles ahead. Yeah.
so instead of 3 tiles ahead, it's gonna go 4 tiles ahead because, again, the area behind the king, the earthquake is useless. Everything's already been destroyed behind the king. So the earthquake's not gonna affect that at all. So, again, it has to be thrown in front of the king somehow in order for it to actually make sense to use. Now, in that case, it could possibly become OP and have to be nerfed because, for instance, if you have Ocho Cueco and you have the earthquakes
Oh,
on your king, well, if you put your king down in the right place, then you can essentially forego using 4 earthquakes in Ocho Cueco, which means you can replace those 4 earthquake spells with something else because you're using the earthquake boots on the king. That's massive whenever a piece of equipment replaces 4 spell spaces. So I don't know.
yeah.
We'll just have to see. So for that one, do you have any more feedback about the earthquake boots?
No, I just saw a little bit in chat, people mentioning the earthquake boots and or doing some attacks with the earthquake boots, and that's kind of the first I've heard of it, so I didn't know if people were, um, kinda putting it out there yet. I guess a lot of these balance changes haven't happened yet. They're gonna take place sometime this month, right?
Yes. So they said early September. We don't know if that's going to be, first day of CWL, the end of CWL, like whenever that's going to happen. But basically, all of these buffs and nerfs just equalize the equipment.
Yeah.
So can a player put earthquake boots on their king and get just about as much damage as any other hero equipment or king equipment combination? Yes. Like pretty much this just made the pieces so that they're pretty much equal across the board. So it's the same with like the barbarian puppet. The barbarian puppet was buffed, and the barbarians have an HP increase, and also the duration of their raged
That's
ability increased from 10 to 20 seconds.
ooh.
So that's massive. Like that's a pretty big buff. But
Yeah.
again, if you rage those barbarians into a giant bomb and you have a scatter shot going off at the same time, like all those barbarians are dead anyway, which is the reason why it's not a great piece of equipment. So it really doesn't change anything. Now, the archer puppet does change a decent amount because when the archers come out, they're going to be invisible. So
Oh.
the it's going to be it doesn't say. Oh, wait, it does say it's
Are
6.5 seconds at max. So that could make a difference. But again, once
are
they become uninvisible, they're completely open to being attacked by, enemy defenses, and they're just going to get picked off super quick anyway.
does this
It,
make a difference too, where it says, all levels, archers spawn with invisibility spawn rate 5 per 1 second? So that way it would mean maybe that
like a
5 come
wave,
out and then the next 5 come out a second later. So like, oh, you got a mortar that takes them out, right? The first 5, well, there's another 5 coming 1 second later.
I mean, it could. Like, it
Because it
could
says
change.
all spawn rate is 5 per 1 second. I
So
don't know if that
again,
changed.
I think that this buff to the archer puppet just equalizes it. It doesn't make it any better than any of the other Queen's equipment. It just equalizes it across the board. When before, the Archer puppet was just a horrible decision. Like I even had videos where I'm like, just toss it in the trash, just completely worthless. Well, now maybe in some situations it makes sense, which is the reason for hero equipment and the reason why hero equipment is so exciting. But you can look at the base, you can say, oh, for this base, I'm going to use the rocket spear and the seeking shield because I'm going to use the RC in the beginning of the attack. And in this attack, I mean, the warden is already really interchangeable with his pieces, whether or not you have the rage versus the heal tome
Yeah,
versus the fireball.
good
Like
point.
you can look at the base and say, I have different options for this attack. And before, with the barbarian puppet and the archer puppet, it was like there's literally no attack, in my opinion, where it makes any sense whatsoever to put the barbarian puppet or the archer puppet on. When now, because of these increased stats, maybe there are some bases where it makes sense to have archers that are kind of popping out ahead of the queen. Maybe there's no splash damage in a specific part of the base. It's all point defenses. You're running a naked queen walk. You pop the ability. These waves of archers come out and they just protect the queen because the archer towers and cannons are targeting those little archers first before they target the queen. So in that case,
Yeah.
maybe so. Like maybe it is something that can be used, but it doesn't make the archer puppet, for example, any better than the healer puppet. And so if we've been using the healer puppet and the invis vial, for
We
example,
don't have to switch.
that there's no logical reason to switch because the archer puppet's likely not going to do any better. So just keep using the
Oh,
healers
okay.
that you've been using.
Okay. I see what you're saying. And which makes a lot of sense because as we look at like the nerfs and the buffs, if we if we go, no, this piece is it maybe it's getting nerfed, but maybe it's just bringing a little bit into balance, and it's not going to be, the other thing is not going to necessarily kick it out of the water,
Right,
depending
exactly.
on what you're using.
I think this validates players who have been using the barbarian puppet, archer puppet, and or earthquake boots. So there are players, for example, who love the earthquake boots and they've been running the earthquake boots since the beginning. Well, this just acknowledges the fact that they love the earthquake boots and they build their strategies
The
around the
rocket
earthquake boots.
spear.
And then Supercell says, look, we recognize that we're bringing it into balance to where it's pretty much equal. So if you've been running earthquake boots, well, now there is a case to be able to say, well, with that extra 10% damage that it does, maybe it does rival, possibly the giant gauntlet and the rage vial in some way. I mean, not for me, but for you, it makes more sense now.
And you're just about to show the Clash world what's the what
Right.
if you have been running it
Right. So
already.
it just validates. So the other two buffs that were really interesting were the life gem on the warden, and then of course the rocket spear. The rocket spear is the biggest buff that actually, not on its own, but combined with nerfs, makes sense for me to switch over to the rocket spear in most situations. But first, let's talk about the life gem on the warden.
Yeah.
Do you use the life gem on the warden at all?
No. I went to the rage, right, and I maxed that out. Then we were talking with Ghost Knight, um, and and some of the YouTubers were talking about hero equipment. You talked about hero equipment, and I was starting to build up my healing tome, and then the mirror came out, and so I've been looking at this week, trying to decide if this is something that I'm going to replace my rage vial with.
So
So
it does buff health by a lot. So there was a 20% increase in the amount of life or health that it gives. But the problem is, for example, the only two armies that I saw the life gem recommended with in the beginning was Lalo because loons are around 1,000 HP per loon, around that. It's not an exact number. So if we put the life gem on the warden, then it buffs the warden or it buffs the balloon's health by 870, which nearly doubles their health. And it helps keep them
ugh,
alive longer so that they can last longer. But then we were in the interview with Ghost Knight, and he brought up the fact that the healing tome
yeah,
can actually help loons get through multi-target inferno towers. And not only that, but the healing tome is massive compared to a regular heal spell. So rather than having to bring a heal spell in order to ensure that my loons can get through that inferno tower, well, I just put the healing tome on it and tome them through. So I don't see the life gem replacing the heal tome, even though the heal tome was nerfed from I think 24 seconds, 25 seconds down to 20 seconds.
oh
That's a pretty massive nerf. But
yeah,
still, if you look at why we're using the heal spell or the heal tome over the life gem, it still makes sense to continue using the heal tome. And then the other army that I saw recommended for the life gem was Super Bowlers because Super Bowlers are pretty squishy. Like they don't have as much life in
yeah,
comparison. And so that life gem would give them 870 extra health. But then again, if we're using the rage gem with healers, those healers are going to be able to heal our Super Bowler faster and more so with the Rage Gem. So again, like the argument is no, you got to keep your Rage Gem on because you want those bowlers to stay nice and healed up and don't have to throw down rage spells all the time in order to make sure that they don't die. So I'm
Yeah.
not seeing the life gem a lot, but I didn't know if you had any other thoughts on that.
No, and so I was wondering that, right? Because there's with the tome, and correct me if I'm wrong here, because obviously I get some things wrong. Um, if the healing so the healing tome has a cap, right? On the
Hmm.
amount.
No,
Not
the life gem has a cap,
the life gem is the one with the cap.
right?
The healing tome doesn't. Okay.
So
All
the
right.
life gem had and the difference between something like the rage gem and the life gem compared to the healing tome and like the eternal tome is that the tome only lasts a specified period of time. So the healing tome will now only last 20 seconds. The eternal tome is actually being nerfed from 9.5 seconds down to 8 seconds, but the tome ability only lasts for that specified period of time when with a gem it's always active as long as the warden is alive. Now, because it's always active,
Oh,
that means
yeah.
it's not as powerful typically. So the healing tome is just
That
OP
makes sense.
during those 20 seconds. The life gem is okay, like it adds 870 health. But again, you have to figure out a way to get those loons through that, multi
Mhm.
target Inferno Tower or to get, those bowlers through that whatever. So I can still possibly see the life gem being used with bowlers. But with Lalo, for example, I still see the heal tome as being a lot more powerful for loons just because of that healing effect getting through a really difficult part of the base.
Yeah. Well, okay, that makes complete sense. Why I was getting some things confused. In that case, I don't know. I mean, I've been looking at it all week going, um, seeing these nerfs come in. What do I level up? I've
Mm,
got my magic mirror up to 21.
wow.
Do I keep going with that one? Because I've been typically going across. Um, but now I'm kind of in a place where my equipment's working how I want it. Um, but is this going to affect it? And I was looking at that, trying to, and I was going to talk to you about it and see if that's what I should do with go with the life gem. But I'm just not. I'm not sure because what this is making me really think is, um, like you said, does this just bring it into the realm of where it should be?
Yeah, at
Y-
100%. So now most of the pieces are pretty equal across the board. And so it's going to be more situational. So the only piece that was nerfed of the Queen's equipment, for example, is the frozen arrow. I don't even have the frozen arrow max. I don't really use it anyway. Because the frozen arrow was nerfed and because the rocket spear was buffed, I immediately switched my upgrading. I stopped upgrading the frozen arrow and I started upgrading the rocket spear
Nice.
because basically with the king, queen, and warden, whatever pieces you've been using, if it worked for you, don't change. Like these buffs and nerfs don't mean anything, in my opinion. Like
Yeah,
if the giant gauntlet and the rage file is what you use and you like it, just because the giant gauntlet was nerfed a little bit doesn't mean you need to switch it out with something else. Like if it's working for you, things are more balanced now. Just keep using it if that's what you like. Same
it
with the
just might
queen.
it just might not be so much overkill.
Right, exactly. It's just more imbalance.
'Cause,
So
like, I'm
same.
thinking about, like, the rage vial that I use, right? And I'm thinking s sometimes in that center of the base, there's all that damage going on when I'm using it, but am I just is there just more of it going the boulders are raged, right?
Mhm.
But they can only hit so fast, so it's like, they're only gonna they can hit twice, and it's gonna take them twice to get through a building, even if
Right.
they're raged.
Yeah,
And
and
so
you're
it's
talking
kinda
about the
like
rage gem,
yeah,
right?
the
Not the
rage
rage
gem.
file. Okay,
Yeah,
right, right.
sorry. They all look the same to me.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. No, and that's a great point. Overkill. So, is it going to matter that the rage gem, for example, which was nerfed, and it was only nerfed for the lower level, so the
oh,
highest level is still the same.
oh, hell
So,
yeah.
So, for
Wow.
example, levels 12 through 14 was nerfed from 40% to 35%.
Hell to yeah.
So, like the Rage Gem, again, it's the same. So, yeah,
This never happens to me.
overkill's a big thing because if a piece of equipment is nerfed, but you get the same result even with that nerf, then is that nerf even effective? So, like you said, if you're using the Rage Gem with Super Bowlers, and let's say that at this level 14, you're using it at, I don't know what level that is, Town Hall 13. Well, now that Rage Gem does 35% of power versus 40% of power. Well, if you're using Super Bowlers and if they're still literally going to destroy most buildings anyway with 2 bounces, then does that nerf mean anything anyway? No. And so
Yeah.
basically for the king, queen, and warden, whatever pieces you're using, keep upgrading those. Uh, for
This
example, I'm using the Invis Vial and the healer puppet on my queen. I'm not changing that. They're max. I have no plans. I did stop upgrading the frozen arrow, but that's only because I'm not including the RC. The RC, there were some pretty big changes, which we could go over in just
y
a second.
yeah. Wow. This is why I don't really dig into it, because until, like, we sit down to talk, I kinda glance over it, don't really process it because I'm afraid I'm gonna go into a blind panic and sweat, and I'm not gonna be able to see all the stuff, and I'm thinking my rage gem's getting nerfed all week because I just kinda glanced down at it, or
Yep.
since this news came out, and I did not notice that it's only up to level 14,
Right.
which means, I mean, besides the spiky ball and the gauntlet, like, I'm really kinda coming through this pretty pretty good.
Yeah. So the one thing
And the
that's
hog
interesting.
puppet
Oh, right, right,
too.
right. And we'll definitely get into RC. But the one thing that's interesting about the King's equipment is a couple weeks ago, I put out which pieces are best for the King that have the most synergy. And I
Yeah,
told you last week that I've been using the Giant Gauntlet paired with the Vamp Stash for my
yeah.
King. And
I
I
was looking
switched
at
over
that.
my pet, for example, to the Frost Walrus because my Phoenix was never, I mean, granted, on attacks that I did really bad,
It.
it would have activated. But on, 6 out of 7 attacks or 6 out of 8 attacks, like my Phoenix wasn't even activating because my King was staying alive the whole time. So I switched out the Phoenix with the Frost Walrus just because like
Shit.
it made sense because the mustache and the giant gauntlet were keeping my king alive. The Vamp Stash was not nerfed in any way. The gauntlet and the spiky ball were, which makes even more of a case for unless you're sending your king directly into the middle of the base, if you're funneling it all, and if he's at any time walking around the base, the Vamp Stash is most of the time going to be your best piece of equipment to use.
See, that's the thing. I watched that video, listening to this week. I've been staring at it, waiting for this conversation
Mm-mm.
because you're kinda just finding out, well, not just finding out, but, like, you were surprised by your results with the Vamp
I
Stash,
was.
and I was wondering how this is gonna translate to this with the Gauntlet. Do you think the Gauntlet at the top levels, it's gonna go down, what, 9? Oh, this is just for top levels, right?
Well, from level 19 to 27, it looks like. So there's a lot of stuff
Oh,
on the
okay.
gauntlet that's going to be reduced. So self healing is reduced from 44 to 40. DPS is reduced from 180 to 160. And then incoming damage reduction is reduced from 60% to 55%. So, like those are some pretty big nerfs, but again, the healing is what you want, the life steal, which is compared to in other games to keep that character alive.
Yeah.
That's what you want, and the king is so powerful on his own that every second that you can keep him alive longer, then that DPS, which is like 685 DPS, just keeps adding up. So even if you could have gotten 5,000 extra damage in the middle of the base. If you can keep that king alive for 9 seconds or even 8 seconds longer with healing equipment, then you're going to equal that damage that you would have done if he had gone to the core and died versus him staying alive by having a healing piece of equipment on him. You're not going to see the damage rack up as quickly, but over the entire attack, you're going to see more damage from the king because he can stay alive longer to do that damage.
Wow. Well, and I'm here's this doesn't none of the effects of this one, right? They don't start until level 19.
Right, level 19 on the giant gauntlet is when it
And
starts.
and that's something I hadn't realized, so I thought it was
So
in a
again, it
group.
doesn't affect Scotty 827.
Yeah, I'm like, "Jesus, this
That's
never
so
happens to
funny.
me."
So
Just kinda looking through.
the RC actually benefits you in a massive way. So the rocket spear was buffed by 25%. So, and it was buffed with a number of power shots that she
Yeah.
throws, and at max it will go from 8 power shots before to 10 power shots. So before, the total damage that she could do with her power shots was 7,800 or 7,600. This will push it all the way up to 9,800 damage. Also 10,000 essentially damage that she can do with the
Wow.
rocket spear. The hog puppet and the haste vial were nerfed pretty massively.
Yeah, I
So the haste
saw.
vial effect will be reduced by 2 seconds from 12 to 10, and the hog level will go from max hogs with a level 18 hog puppet down to town hall 14 hogs at level 11. So
Oh,
I totaled up the total damage that the hogs can do as level 11 hogs, and it was like 1,600 and something DPS. So that means in order for those 9 hogs that pop out from the hog puppet ability, they're going to have to last as a group at least 6-ish seconds. I think it's 5.8 seconds in order for those hogs to do equal to the damage that the rocket spear can do at max. And then with the haste vial, during the haste vial ability, like the ability is going to last 10 seconds, you're essentially getting double damage from the RC during that time period. And the amount of damage that she can do during that 10 seconds is around 12,000 damage. So again, if we look at all these pieces and we're like, oh, this is pretty much just making it equal, when before it 100% made sense. Like it was a no-brainer to keep the haste vial and the hog puppet on your RC because it was easy for the hog puppet and the haste vial to get more than the 7,800 damage that the rocket spear offered. But
yeah.
now at 10,000 damage, it's really kind of a toss up. But the one difference between the two is with the haste vial, oftentimes the RC will run into damage. She will run into
Yeah,
dangerous situations. When
that's
with the rocket spear, it's literally the exact opposite effect, where
yes, I
she
love it.
stands back outside of damage. So, based on those abilities, the RC will last longer pretty much 100% of the time with the rocket spear on her versus having the haste vial on her.
Yeah,
So we go back to the king argument, right? Why do we put the Vance Dash on the king and the giant gauntlet? In order to keep him alive longer so that he can do more damage throughout the attack. Well, if we apply that same logic to the RC and we're using the rocket spear combined with, I think, the royal gem now, the RC will be doing more damage throughout the attack over the course of the attack. And to me, it 100% means as soon as my rocket spear is maxed, I'm going to be switching from the haste vial hog puppet to the rocket spear royal gem,
you
just
are.
based on the fact that my RC is going to last so much longer because of the qualities and attributes that each of these pieces of equipment offer. It's not that the haste vial is bad. It's not that the
Yeah,
hog puppet is bad. It just means she's more likely to die quicker with those pieces. She's more
that's a good
likely to
point.
last longer with the rocket spear and the royal gem.
That's a good point. And this is why I think as you start to use the rocket spear too, what what I found with it is like, so first of all, I'm just pumped, especially hearing you talk about it.
Mhm.
But when the it's not even that she kinda, like, hangs back and shoots, but it's also, like, the her ability to get to where you want her to faster,
Mhm.
and then and then you can kind of adapt a little bit the attack, but sometimes you can do it where the hogs will split, so you kind of can get two directions out of it,
Mhm.
and she shoots this, and then she's going to go this way or whatnot. And so you can kind of do that. It just reminds me of she is always like my Hail Mary. Like she comes in there, uh, um, and if my queen's coming into something, I can send those hogs in, first, and those spears. So it's like she's right there, and then and she usually ends up saving me like on a monolith or something like that. And I put that diggy on her now.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a big game changer.
Yep, yep. So I actually think that if you're Town Hall 15 and below, the hog puppet is still probably going to be best paired with the RC. And
It-
the reason is because I think the damage that you can get between all the pieces are pretty equal, but that 1 second of invisibility that's given with the hog puppet is massive. Like that's a huge buff. That's a
yeah.
huge ability because if she gets locked onto by a single target inferno, for example, that
Yep.
1 second of invisibility will save her in that situation. But if you're Town Hall 16, you likely have the Spirit Fox on her, which means that 1 second of invisibility isn't as important. So basically, what I'm saying is, if you're Town Hall 15 and below, use the Hog Puppet on her. If you're Town Hall 16 and above, it's more of a personal decision. But I really think the Royal Gem is probably going to end up being the best piece to pair with the Rocket Spear
So to keep her alive, to recharge her
to
about that.
recharge her, to give her more power, to let her last longer, to do more damage.
Yeah. Well, and I haven't really used the haste file much. It's still at level 8 because that was the problem. The RC goes right into the middle of it. And so as soon as I hit the haste file, I know she's going inside to where all the stuff is, and she's going to take the hits. And,
Right?
and she'll get there. It seemed like, and in other people's attack, like before the hogs. Um,
Mhm.
so she's in there taking the damage. And so just having her back, and it's almost just like replacing her instead of her banging on this thing. It's just her
Right?
banging on the thing behind the hogs and stuff. Um,
Yeah, so let's be clear. I still think for a very skilled attacker, the haste foul hog puppet is going to be best for them because if you release the haste ability and the hogs on the
Release
right
the
spot on the
hogs.
base, they're going to be able to get more damage than you would with the rocket spear.
Mm.
But you're probably going to have to use a heal spell or invis spell or free spell, like something to support those. But as long as you have your eye on the RC, you can get more damage from the haste file and the hog puppet than with the rocket spear. But in general, in most situations, like if I'm running Legend League attacks, I'm not going to know exactly where I want to release my haste file, and I'm not good enough to be able to look at a base in 30 seconds and say, oh, I'm going to release my RC right here so that I can get maximum opportunity with these
Oh
hogs and hate
yeah.
file. So, in most cases, for most players, the Rocket Spear Royal Gem is going to be better. So, it's kind of like the Frozen Arrow.
What works best with blind panic mode?
Yeah, Rocket Spear. Yeah, Rocket Spear Royal Gem. So it's kind of like the Frozen Arrow on the Queen, where the Frozen Arrow, yes, it's a more OP, more powerful piece of equipment for a Queen charge. But if you're not Klaus or Stars or one of these professional players are really good with Queen charges, then you're probably going to do better with the healing puppet and either the magic mirror or the invis file, just because it gives you that extra wiggle room in order to make your attack successful. That's the exact same thing that the rocket spear and the royal gem offers now. Is it gives you wiggle room, since I'm not the greatest attacker in the world, to allow me a better chance to 3-star the base, and my hero doesn't die early because of my ineptitude.
You talking about the frost? What do you think about this nerf?
Of the frozen arrow.
Yeah, sorry. Oh, it just said frost percent.
Oh,
As
right.
yours, because I'm
I
I'm thinking as you're saying this, that there's a lot of people using the frozen
yeah,
arrow.
a lot of people do use the frozen arrow. I mean, I haven't used the frozen arrow since it was introduced. just because I don't do many queen charges, really, number one. And a queen charge is where a frozen arrow shines. Like it's really good for a queen charge, but I just don't really do queen charges that much just because spam attacks have been the meta for so long, like root riders. And we can talk a little bit about the nerfs that was done to the supporting troops for a
Oh
spam root
yeah.
rider attack. But because root rider spam has been just controlling everything for months and months and months, it doesn't really make sense to do a queen charge. And even the type of quote unquote queen charges that I do are mostly with clone hydra, where I'm putting the queen down with a giant arrow. I'm shooting through a few air defenses, possibly a sweeper, trying to get a hero with the queen. And I'm using the healers that pop out from the healer puppet anyway. Even in that instance, I'm not using the frozen arrow. So I don't know that this is basically nerfing queen charges just a little bit, which I don't do a lot of anyway. The casual player, in my opinion, doesn't do a lot of anyway. So not a huge effect, at least in my opinion.
Will it be enough to make people switch, do you think?
I mean, it's 10%. I don't know. If I had the frozen arrow on and I was using it, maybe.
What at like level 12 through 14 is a 20% reduction? I suppose that must be like a certain town hall level, but I mean, I feel like that would really or maybe it's overkill already. I mean, I guess I don't know
Right.
what it translates to.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. Like if you have your queen on a single target inferno and it's a max frozen arrow, like that single target inferno is never going to heat up. Well, with this 10% reduction in freezing ability, I'm pretty sure that that single target inferno still is never going to warm up to do a lot of damage. So does the overkill
Yeah, this is gonna be
essentially
interesting because we've been talking about like the game being, are these small little changes, the balancing of equipment, are these things are the part of are they taking away the overkill of it? And are we gonna see
yeah,
a transition in war? Um,
I think that the each this what this does is it validates players who have been using opposite meta pieces, pieces that other people like to crap on, right?
yeah,
It validates them. It also evens everything out. So I do think we probably need to address the fact that a lot of players are upset about these nerfs to hero equipment. And the response is, well, they could have buffed defenses and DPS for defenses to match the hero equipment. So, for example, if the giant gauntlet is so powerful, well, then just up the DPS of the archer towers and the cannons, so that way it in effect is not so powerful. And the other argument used is that a lot of gaming companies, what they do is they will introduce pieces of equipment, make them really OP, and then nerf them right before a new piece is going to be introduced. So that way the player base is like, holy cow, you just nerfed my equipment. Here's this new OP piece. I'm going to spend a lot of money to buy that new piece because it's better than my currently nerfed piece that I've been using. I I understand that argument, but also I don't necessarily agree that that's what's happening. And the only reason that I don't agree is because of all the buffs of everything that
yeah,
Supercell buffed with the equipment. Like to me, I look at all this and I see a very much aligning of all of the pieces to where now all the pieces across the board are pretty equal. If they were and now granted, Supercell's trying to make money off of us, right? I get that 100%. They're a
yeah,
business. They want to make money and they want to do things to try to make as much money off us as much as possible. I don't look at them and, despise them for that any more than I look at Insomnia Cookies and the fact
right,
that they raised
right.
their cookie price from $2 to
Son
250.
of a
Like I
bitches.
look at it the same way, right? But I do think in general, they were genuinely trying to balance the pieces across the board. And I really think that they've been successful in doing so. So while I understand why players are upset, the reality is the piece that they're using, whatever it is, it's still really
Yeah,
powerful. The giant gauntlet's still really
yeah,
powerful. The frozen arrow's still really powerful. the Rage Gem and the Healing Tome are still really I'm not changing
Let's
anything on
everybody
my
just calm
heroes.
down now, shall we? No.
Yeah, so I guess I say that like I understand. I understand why players are upset, but also to me, it's not it's not that much of a nerf to really get upset about, just to me personally.
Yeah, well, and this might bring it into skill level a little bit. I mean, I don't know, right? Because I'm looking at numbers, like who knows how it plays out. But you have a community that's saying, "Hey, it's too easy at the top," but still we want to make it more balanced and play in the for people who aren't like in this competitive spaces or whatever. And then like maybe this just means a tiny tipping point where you're going to have to be much more careful or just a little bit more careful about your funnel.
Right?
It's you're just going to
Skill.
have to be a little bit more precise. Yeah.
Yep.
Like it's not going to overkill. And maybe this just, I mean, if it has a 10% effect on heroes, or hero equipment, maybe that just brings the war stars down 3 or 4, or 5 because a couple attacks just didn't go as much as they wanted.
Right. Which
Would be giving people what they wanted in the first place, but of course, yeah, then you look at it the other way and you go, "Well, yeah, now they nerf it," and kind of a cash grab. People think maybe it's a cash grab, but it's like, well, we want it all, I guess.
right, yeah. I mean, so the Root Rider nerf. So obviously, Root Riders themselves weren't nerfed, but literally every supporting troop and supporting spell were nerfed for the Root Rider attack. So one of the reasons why Root Riders are so powerful is because of the Overgrowth spell, for example. And so currently it's 28 seconds at max. That as far as the
Oh,
time that it lasts, and it's being reduced to 25 seconds. So
and a smaller from 7 tiles to 6 tiles.
right, which is going to take a little getting used to. So it's
Yeah.
not going to cover quite as much, which means that there might be a defense left up. Currently, when we use it, or when after the
Yeah.
nerf happens, that would have been covered by it before, which means it's going to be doing damage over that time.
Change
So
your
these are
core.
very minor changes. So my complaint was I'm okay with being 3-starred, right? And I want players to be able to 3-star because I think that that's important to the game, and I think Supercell thinks that that's important to the game. They want players to feel good about the game, and being able to 3-star is a very positive thing. And I agree 100%. What I didn't like, and what a lot of players were complaining about, were looking at, for instance, Legend League attacks on our base, or even in war, right? You would see somebody who would, for example, place their king down right outside the monolith, and the king would die in 3 seconds because they just put their king down in the wrong spot. Or they just plop all of their root riders down with their Valks, overgrowth a few spots on the base without any strategy at all, and they would still 3-star and 3-star pretty easily. Well,
Yeah.
now, hopefully, with these changes, like you said, you have to do some creative funneling first. You have to do a strategic entry in some way. You can't just plop it down,
Plop.
and in a majority of the time, it's still just you can't puke it up. Shout out to puke in hell, all hell. You can't just puke it up. Not that all hell pukes out his attacks. Not at all.
Yeah,
He's an
yeah,
amazing. We actually text each other. We're like, "Holy cow!" Like all hell's an amazing attacker. So
yeah,
not at all. But you can't just puke up your attack and expect a 3-star anymore. Like you have to actually be decent with this troop and this troop comp before you can 3-star. And that's basically all that we were asking for. Was
yeah.
don't make it a puke fest. Make
Yeah.
it a little more strategy
Plop and
involved.
spam.
Right, exactly. And you have learned that. So, for example, with your attacks, I've watched you go from not necessarily puking spam,
Well,
but a
yeah,
little
you could
on the
probably
puking
say
spam side.
from my
Yeah,
first war attack coming
right.
back
Yes.
and like running golems with healers, like
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, real spammy.
To
Which
where now you're able to strategically take out corners of the base in creative ways and decide which side of the base to come in from and where you want to put the core of your army in from. Like all of that takes a little thought and a little strategy,
Yeah.
which is good. Like we want players like Scotty827 to 3-star because when I watch that replay on my base and I'm like, holy cow, yeah, yeah, that was a good
Yeah.
attack. Like that was solid.
Yeah.
Like good for the attacker. But when
He
I see
he
somebody
got the
attack the base,
corner, and
yes,
then oh, and because he got the corner, he came in. Wow, most people don't hit like that or something. Yeah, I get
but
what you
but if they came in and they literally dropped all their dragons or whatever troop, all the root riders in one corner, and they just hit their hero abilities, randomly throughout the attack. I watched that replay and I'm like, how in the hell did that 3-star? Like
Yeah.
that's a bunch of crap. Like
What the
what
heck?
why can they 3-star like that? And hopefully these changes will affect that and bring things again more into balance to where the 3-star percentage will still be decently high, I think. Like I still think that you're going to see the player base using root riders, compared with Valks and Rage Barbarians and Druids, and the Overgrowth spell, and you're still going to see a decent amount of 3-stars, but not the bad attacks, not just the puking attacks. I don't know.
Well,
What do you think?
yeah, I as the more we talk about this, I'm just kind of seeing the tendency of it to just limit it a little bit. Um, is to is to where like a lot of times, if I'm using my spiky ball, for example, just having one less, in most situations isn't going to matter. But,
Right.
in sometimes, so it's like you're just going to have to be a little bit more precise. Hope things, make sure that funnel is
Super tight.
super tight because,
That's what she said.
yeah, because if it goes if it latches on, um, it, like I could just see it kind of bringing it more into balance
Right.
overall. Just and maybe this is exactly what we want, and maybe I'm I'm all right because this is just not hitting me
Yeah, or your
very hard.
attack. Although
Yeah.
with the druids, you do use druids, and I actually I just realized on a previous episode, I thought that druids healed up to 5 targets because I watched a YouTube video where it said that they would heal up to 5
Hmm.
targets. Evidently, they have only healed 4 targets,
Mm.
evidently. But that 4 is being reduced to 3, which is what you thought it was several episodes ago
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. So
So
it's
that's not even
like
really a nerf for you anyway.
I know. I'm like I've been wrong about so much of this stuff, thinking it was already the way it was. But that's not to say like I was putting them in there thinking that, and they were doing what they were doing, but now I'm still gonna get less because I was throwing my 5 heroes in,
Right,
and so, like, that might just pop in there, like, just a little bit too, just a little tweak like that, like, "Oh, man, this one isn't," I've got all these going in, and I'm gonna get 2 less heals into the
right,
base, I might not get as many troops in there, um, which is alright in some ways because if I'm really kicking a base sometimes, most of the time, if I'm getting a 3-star, I'm getting it with a lot of troops.
right. Because you
And
funneled right, because you were strategic about your attack, all of that.
yeah, and it was but I think a little overpowered, like and I think maybe with this, what's gonna happen is even when if I get that 3-star, that same 3-star, I'm just gonna have a little bit less troops at the end. Like, it's just
Right,
everything's gonna count a little bit more.
right, yeah.
Um, which I don't know if you saw my attack from last night,
I did
but
not see last night, but I mean, I've been watching them in past wars, like,
it
you're on a
this
6 peak streak, man,
yeah, I am, but this
or a
la
6 star
it
streak.
almost ended last night because it was down to one of those this is what it kind of reminded me of, like, the bases in this war that we're at are really set up pretty good, I think, and they're kind of deceptive because
Mhm,
they look like one I normally hit, but things went wrong and wonky, and I recalled the queen and the warden with, like, just a sliver of health in a poison, and
mhm.
it came back, and I got it with, like, 2 seconds left. But it was like, I could just imagine more of those type of attacks where I'm having a heart attack while Lil Jon's playing in the background, and then I gotta make a bathroom run.
You're have
Change
changed your
my
whitey tighties.
shorts. Yeah.
That's funny. Are you a whitey tighty guy or are you a boxer guy?
Uh,
Is that too personal of a
boxers.
question? I'm a boxer guy
Boxer
too.
brief. Boxer brief.
Boxer briefs. I do
Yeah.
boxer briefs every now and again. That's TMI for the listener, I think.
Uh, well, it's good to know what your podcast
Wait,
hosts underwear are,
yes,
you know.
right. Good information to
So
know. Great. Yeah.
so
So with the druids, um, I just haven't been using them. So GCBC posted a video of using druids, for example, with super witches. So I used them for a few attacks, and I don't know if you remember, but I put out a video a while ago about druids versus healers.
yep, I
If
remember that one.
if you have a troop that's going to need healing to stay alive throughout the attack, then basically you need to use healers versus if you don't need that healing throughout the entire attack, then you use druids. Basically, that was the overview. So I tried using druids with my super witches, and it did not go well. They worked great while they were healing, but then whenever they got to the back end of the base, I had no healing
And
on my super witches and they just died and my attack petered out. Now that's part of that could be skill. Like maybe, I'm not attacking right. But it seems to work better with healers anyway. So like the druid thing, doesn't really affect me.
yeah,
But I find it interesting that they decided to nerf a new troop. I guess they've done it before,
well,
but to nerf a new troop so quickly after introduction.
I was kind of thinking that too until you said today they didn't really nerf the Nerf Rider or
Hmm.
the Nerf Herder, Root Rider, but they did all the supporting.
Right. Yeah, because pretty much every root rider attack uses an overgrowth spell, if not 2 or 3.
Yeah,
Every and then every root rider attack uses either or both Valks and Rage Barbarians.
yep.
Either or both.
Or for
And
funnel
then
too, right? Like the Siege Barrack funnel?
right? And then also a lot of root rider attacks have started using druids, because that essentially acts as a heal spell in the very beginning, so it saves you the spell space for let's be honest, very only 16 troop space with the druids. So the druids were helping the root riders last a lot longer. So all the supporting troops for that attack have been nerfed, which I mean, again, I think it's good. Like I think it brings things back into balance a little more, even though I hate it for players maybe who are 3-starring now, and then after the nerf, they're not gonna 3-star. Like, I hate it for them, but also I'm like, "Look, let's practice, let's work it up." Like, if it's me, like, I'm gonna be changing out troops. Like, maybe I'm using this to funnel with, and I'm gonna change it to that. Or maybe I'm gonna, pull out a troop to add an extra super witch, or I don't know, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna change things up so that I can try to get better.
Well, I almost wonder when you were saying that, like, a lot of times I use my healers, like, I swap them out to, like, I'll pop my queen
Mhm.
to pull out the healers later on. You know,
Right?
like my sacrificial healers for the ones I bring in, and then I'll I'll pop her even when she's like at a certain point in the base so that she'll transfer over to the healers will pop over to the other troops.
Right? Right? Yeah, and that makes
I don't know if
more
on the witch attack if that would even work or anything, but
well, so the interesting thing of that, and that's not bad at all. I do the same thing with like my root rider attacks, but the beautiful thing about bringing healers over druids in the beginning of like my super witch attacks is that I'm covering those healers with cocoa loons like throughout the attack. So if I'm using druids, I'm not covering areas with cocoa loons because I don't need to because I don't have flying healers in order to
oh.
protect. So a lot of the times whenever if they're
Oh.
unprotected, whenever I pop the healer puppet, those healers pop out, and that's the first flying thing that's been introduced to the base. So immediately it's susceptible to every single air trap possible that's on the base because you haven't introduced any flying troops.
Oh, good point.
So that's another reason for me to use healers with my super witches over druids because
Yeah.
I'm more likely to save and protect the healers either that I already have or the healers that pop out whenever I press my queen ability.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because I like to use those, super minions.
right?
I'll sometimes just drop one with the word and right away just to clear it, in case there's any traps, but there's usually not, but I forget about the air traps and things. Um, do, uh do blimps set off air traps?
Yes, yeah, they do. 'Cause
And the
if you get a blimp that
skellies?
you're sending in to get that gets hit by a couple black mines, it's going down early.
Oh, okay. We were
Yeah,
watching a replay in the thing the other night, and it was hard to see, everything was going on.
right.
Do the skelly traps set for the air skellies? Do you
I
know?
believe so, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they do.
Yeah, I guess overall, like, I'm seeing, change a little bit to and I'm only using 2 druids, so they're not a huge part of my
Right,
attack.
right,
Um, a little bit to the equipment, um, so I guess it's really not gonna super big impact me, but I know that these are things that are using being used a lot by people in the clan.
right. And
Um,
so the last thing that I know that we wanna talk about was the siege machine nerf
yeah,
for lower town
explain this to
halls.
me. I don't know what
So
the heck.
this is a big one. So basically, the if you think of Clash of Clans as a progression game, the higher you get in town halls, the tougher it gets to 3-star, which is it's built that way on purpose because when a player first starts playing, like obviously they're not going to have the skill or
Yeah.
understand the game enough to be able to 3-star, and so you kind of start them off on baby steps.
Yeah.
Right, so you start them off at Town Hall 7 and Town Hall 8, maybe they get to use hogs, maybe they get to use dragons, whatever it may be. Well, evidently, it's becoming too easy to 3-star at these lower Town Hall levels, and evidently, again, Supercell, when they put out this announcement, they were like, "This is based on player feedback. We've made these changes basically because players have asked for them." Well, at Town Hall 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, the siege machine situation has been such that
Has
you
been
can put down
dire.
a flame flinger, for example, at Town Hall 10 and take out a ton of the base because that flame
Ooh.
flinger is so powerful. Well, Supercell said, "We see that. We are taking your flame flinger away from you.
Oh, shit.
And we are taking away your log launcher, and we're taking away your siege barracks. Now, if you want a siege machine at Town Hall 10, you can only use the wall wrecker, the blimp, or the stone slammer. And that's it. No other siege machines are available to you."
Wow.
And it's the same at Town Hall 11. No,
I'd be
no
pissed.
catapult at Town Hall 11. And the funny one though to me was at Town Hall 14. Evidently, you can have a max flame flinger at Town Hall 14, but the flame flinger that you take with you in your CC is only going to allow to be level 3.
Yeah,
So
why
that one didn't
is
really make sense to me because I'm like, if it's so important that the flame flinger not be available to do that much damage that you want to nerf it from level 4 to level 3, then why are you not nerfing the flame flinger that the player can bring themselves on their attack from 4 to 3 if it's that important? But
could that be people aren't upgrading it and they're just relying on donations?
yeah, and that's at 100%. So for example, on my strategic rush base, I have not upgraded, I don't think, any of my siege machines. Just because if I'm going to do a super important war attack, I'm going to get one in my clan castle anyway.
Yeah.
So what this does change is, if I have a Town Hall 14 and I want to use a Flame Flinger, well, now it looks like since I can't get a level 4 Flame Flinger in my CC, well, crap, I'm going to have to upgrade Flame Flingers, in my lab, so that way I can at least have a max Flame Flinger for my Town Hall 14 attack.
I I don't know. Th To me, th I could see how that could, like, propel clans a little bit, and it could kinda shift the could I don't wanna say shift clan makeup, but you kinda force the individual to kinda, like, do their own thing a little bit more to
A little
become more
more.
powerful, like, because you've
Mhm.
got okay, like you said, now I can't get a level 4, I can only get a level 3, so I gotta get myself up there. Um, maybe some of these 10s are gonna wanna go to Town Hall 11, so
Yep.
they can get that siege machine. Um Yeah, and they're gonna have to. Oh wow.
It's gonna encourage rushing even more. I mean, just what it's very, very minor, but it's gonna make more sense again, once again, to get to higher town hall level so that way you can have access to these OP, pieces of equipment and troops and siege machines and all of that. Um,
Yeah. Well, I just thinking like, wow, how the town hall levels have changed because if like Brittany would have been a 10, what just thinking about a flame flinger at that level, like the amount of damage it could do.
that's ridiculous, right? I mean, all you have to
Yeah.
do, put down a couple troops to test for traps and Teslas, and
y-
then literally just because the only thing on a Town Hall 10 base, well, I guess that so the Expo and the mortars could still outrange it. But if you had any portion of the base that was not covered by an Expo or a mortar, or if you had an easy way to get down the mortar, then that flame flinger could take out 40% of the base on its own.
Yeah, you just have to have it locked, like put a golem on something that's not gonna get to for a while and like bam, 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 bam.
Yeah, and just put a couple cleanup troops down behind it. Like literally, it was basically Supercell looking at Town Hall 10 saying, "This is just too easy with the Flame Flinger. So sorry, we're going to take it away from you."
And if everybody's up one level in their clan, the people above them are kind of going up, and we know Town Hall 17 is coming, right? This
Right?
year. That's confirmed, right?
So it hasn't been confirmed, but it's very likely.
Yeah,
Like
I
they
mean,
said that they're on a year-to-year schedule, and last year it was like the first week of December or second week of December. So likely it will be
and
that
they've
first or second
alluded
week of
to it in
December
the
again.
comments and
Right, right.
and so it kind of seems like it's a gear up, heroes go up in July, building upgrades August, and
They're getting
then
ready. Mhm.
yeah, and to kind of build to that, which is I think a good pace because I could see myself getting close to that because they're making it easier for me to level up, like with this building boost this month. I mean, maybe it's not a ton overall, right? A tenth or 12th of a percent, but I did a
Right.
lot of work on the village in that time, and then
Have
you
you
add the
just
building boost on it, and
Have you decided when you're gonna go to Town Hall 16? Like, have you planned it for, to coincide it with CWL at all?
well, I doubt it'll be next CWL.
Okay.
I doubt. I really want to get everything. I want to upgrade my base as much as possible before I get there. So my plan is, uh, this month I'll be getting books of building, and I got a bunch, or, books of everything or whatever, from challenges. I just have to do my scatter shots and my expos. So I'm kind of leaving those to do
Mhm.
that. And then I have been it's been really hard to get the gold, especially organizing CWL and stuff.
Yeah, it takes a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm just kind of like
And
going
shout
back
out to
and
you,
forth,
by
and
the way.
it seems to be going all right so far.
Yeah.
Um, and hopefully everything swings through. There's going to be a few last minute things, I think. Just kind of shuffling bit, but everybody's been great and
Mhm.
really just trying to figure out, uh, you know, where everything kind of lands. Like do we put like 14s up? Where are we going to get hit? Is it going to be good for the bottom guys? Do you don't want people like to have to go, if they don't have to, everybody likes to be where they're at. And
Right.
so, yeah, trying to balance has been um cool but fun, but I haven't really haven't got as many raids in the last couple days, and so I've just been like working on these traps and realizing how under leveled they are. And so I think this very first part is just going to be do all the hidden things, and then it's mortars and the other stuff. So it looks like I could do it pretty fast, but I kind of think it's going to take me one more month. And I'd be happy with that because I think my pet research would be done. I think most of my research should be done,
Mhm.
or getting close to it. And so, but I'm kind of excited because this town hall with the reductions in time and June, this has been like almost like a shorter upgrade times, it seems like to me, than when I went to 14.
So I'm gonna have to say that you're gonna be proud of me.
Ooh,
So I have Sleepy Builders on my Town Hall 14 and Town Hall 15.
nice.
That's pretty big for me. So, we talked at the beginning of the episode about how I want to refocus my time on being able to play tabletop games with family. So, bringing it first full circle, part of the reason why I got away from doing so was because I had 4 accounts, which we talked about last week, for example. And we talked about I just need to be okay with not having everything always upgrading on all 4 accounts all the time. And so I've been not as focused on my Town Hall 14, Town Hall 15. And so unfortunately I
Nice.
don't have the resources to upgrade stuff.
Yeah.
Scotty, it's difficult for me.
It's hard because you feel like you're behind, but you know what? It'll be there, and they're just gonna shorten the times anyways,
True.
you know,
Very
to get up
true.
there. But I'm proud of you. I think that's awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It'll get easier too
Yeah.
as you do it, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, we should probably wrap up. We're getting a little
Yeah.
up there in time.
Sounds good.
And again, we didn't get to the songs. I've got to compile these so we can just do the little clips of them in
Right, and
the
if anybody
episode.
else wants to add any songs that
Yeah.
would apply to either Scotty or I, then we've already had some people do so in podcast feedback, the podcast feedback channel on the House of L Discord server, but you can still add stuff, like, of course, and we definitely wanna talk about that because that's
And then
great
episode
topic.
33, we'll do the song episode.
Right.
Um,
Perfect.
which there's some really good songs that people have been suggesting that I've
Yep.
been actually I like trying out, like, and finding something, but I'm sticking with Little John for now. But
Robin Hood and
um,
Little John?
yep. And
Robin
Will
Hood and Little John
Scarlet.
running through the forest.
um, yeah,
Nice.
shout out to everybody. And for me this week, uh, House of L, as I work through the CWL stuff, it's fun. The new people coming in, um, and uh, I'm pretty excited about this CWL and seeing what these balance changes bring to the game, because it kind of does seem like an answer to what, um,
The player base has been asking for.
yeah,
Yeah.
um, and I'm trying to think of direct shout outs right now, but I'm staring at this one screen. What do you got this
Uh,
week?
So I wanted to shout out Bass Thumper. So Bass Thumper's been commenting on my YouTube videos for
Ooh,
months now. He's always funny. I don't know if he listens to the podcast or not. I know he comments on my YouTube videos, but if you do listen to the podcast, Bass Thumper, I think that your comments are hilarious and I absolutely love them. So thank you very much for the interaction. I appreciate it. And then I also wanted to shout out 2 former Clash of Clans podcasters who had the podcast called Clash on the Potty. I love the name.
oh yeah, that's cool.
But I still keep in contact with them every now and again. They've commented on some of my YouTube videos, and that's Proverbs and Tribe. So I want to shout out them this week. I don't know if they listen to the podcast either, but thank you for what you have done. And thank you for the feedback. I definitely appreciate it. It warms my heart to know that there are people that I have interacted with who feel comfortable enough to comment on videos, give me their real opinion. Chewy, of course, does so all the time as well.
Yeah,
You do as well, right? So, but I wanted to call them out specifically.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So big shout out. People in Houseville are killing it with attacks. We're kind of, I think, at the point, if you're thinking about joining or coming to House of L. I know over the past couple of weeks we've talked a little bit about town hall levels, but really right now we're pretty much at about the town hall 14s because we're in this CWL. I think we're gonna put a couple 13s in. How do you think that will affect the matchup? Because this is one question I had for you.
So I think we'll be okay. Like I think we only have 2 Town Hall 13s that we're going to have at the bottom. So I imagine a lot of the clans, maybe half of the clans that we're going to go against, will also have lower accounts in. So they should have, someone to attack. But in Masters 2, that's where you see clans starting to get, a little more serious.
Yeah.
So we probably will go against some clans that are all Town Hall 16 and Town Hall 15. So in those
Oh,
cases, those Town Hall 13s are going to have to hit up. But in general, I
and
think they'll
that's
be okay, you know?
and that's the big difference. Right. I guess that's because
Yeah.
as I'm trying to process CWL and like, wanting to take everybody, right, as part of the team and like, well, you might get it's not about like, are you gonna be able to hit your across? It's that your across might be um
Might be 2 levels or 3
yeah,
level town halls above you.
because I was thinking, with the 14s, we're probably gonna get mostly 14s to the bottom, but you're right. Like in the past wars, we'll get it. They might be up against a 15 or a
Yeah.
16,
Yeah.
depending. Especially like with rushed bases and we only get the one attack. So,
Right.
um, okay, that's good to know because it's like love to put a few more 13s in so we could, I think this time we'll go with that and then see how it works out. And then a lot of the 13s in the clan will be graduating up, and
Mhm.
then we can um start to like if somebody's got a second account, just have them go to the other clan to war with a second,
Right.
and try to make up the team of all L members with, at least one account in CWL.
Right.
So everybody gets a spin in it.
Yeah, sounds like a plan.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. ChatGPT makes it easy on top of Clash King and things like that. You just put stuff together. So next time we will be here uh talking about what it all means and what more we find out because there's speculation all over with the new meta attacks or what's going to be. We'll
Mhm.
probably have a little bit more details. Maybe we'll know a little bit about the mystery event. That's going
Mhm.
to be this month. Uh, and we'll be able to talk about CWL because it's going to be almost finished for next week, and
Right.
it'll
Right.
be interesting. Every month it seems like as I learn more, get more into it, these wars just get more and more interesting. I hope I can pull some more out this wins out this
I have
war.
no doubt that you're gonna pull out a 3-star a lot in
I
this
hope so.
CWO.
And then if we get up against these bases, I'd like to test it out, see where I'm at. So,
Yep.
get a hold of us, clashclanspodcast@gmail.com. You can call or text 320-216-2073. That's 320-216-2073. Follow Tip at Clash Tips on YouTube or the Clash Tips podcast. What else am I forgetting? Anything? Or what am
The
I remembering?
I'm sorry, Clash of Clans podcast at gmail.com, is that right?
Yep,
Yeah.
Clash
Oh,
Clans
did you already say
podcast.
that?
I might have,
You're
but we might as well say it again.
Clash of
Uh,
Clans podcast.com.
Clash Clans podcast. Now. All right. Well, until next time, everybody, keep it clashy and get ready for the September 2004 balance changes.
Skilly beep boop, skilly